don't belong with us, Eli." Marianne's voice cut through the dinner conversation like a blade through silk. The entire table went silent. Crystal glasses stopped clinking. Forks froze midair. 20 family members stared at me, waiting for my reaction. I looked up from my plate at my mother-in-law's mansion dining room. The chandelier sparkled above us like 1,000 tiny judgments. Marianne continued, her diamond necklace glittering. "You were always beneath this family, a handyman, a tinkerer with no ambition. Clarissa deserved a real man, someone with class, with money. You were a mistake we tolerated for far too long." My hands clenched under the table. I looked at my wife sitting beside her mother. Clarissa raised her wine glass to her lips. She took a slow sip, said absolutely nothing, did not defend me, did not look uncomfortable, did not even meet my eyes. Just sipped her expensive wine like Marianne was discussing the weather forecast. "I think it's time we all acknowledged the truth," Marianne said, dabbing her mouth with a linen napkin. "Eli has been holding Clarissa back for 20 years. He's been a charity case, a failed project that should have ended long ago." Quiet laughter rippled around the table, polite, controlled, but unmistakable. I pushed back my chair, stood up slowly. Every eye followed me as I walked out of that mansion without saying a single word. Clarissa came home 3 hours later. I was sitting in our living room, the house we had bought together 20 years ago, the house I had renovated with my own hands, every cabinet, every door frame, every piece of crown molding, my work, my sweat, my pride. "We need to talk," I said quietly. She dropped her designer purse on the counter, kicked off her expensive shoes. "About what? Mother's comments?" "Eli, she's right. We both know it." Her voice was cold, flat, like she was reading from a script she had memorized years ago. "You're agreeing with her?" I felt something crack inside my chest, a physical pain, sharp, real. Clarissa turned to face me. Her expression was tired, bored, like this conversation was an inconvenience. "I'm tired of pretending, tired of defending choices I made when I was young and stupid. You were supposed to be temporary rebellion against my mother, but then I got pregnant, and here we are. Our daughter was grown now, married, living 3 states away. We were alone. Just the 2 of us. So that's it? 20 years means nothing?" Clarissa walked to the kitchen drawer, pulled out a thick manila envelope, dropped it on the coffee table in front of me with a heavy thud. Divorce papers, already filled out, already signed by her in blue ink. "You'll be out before spring," she said coldly. Then she walked upstairs. The house became a tomb over the next few days. We did not speak, did not acknowledge each other's existence. Clarissa slept in the bedroom with the door locked. I slept on the couch downstairs. Even our old dog Bailey avoided me now, following Clarissa everywhere like he knew which side would keep feeding him. I started packing slowly, methodically, my clothes, my tools, my books, the few possessions that were truly mine. The silence was crushing. Not angry silence, just empty, cold. Like I was already gone, like I was a ghost haunting my own life. I moved through rooms I had built, touching walls I had painted, and felt absolutely nothing from her. No regret, no sadness, just complete indifference. One afternoon, while Clarissa was at her mother's house for lunch, I went through her office, looking for financial documents, trying to understand what came next. That is when I found it, a hidden folder on her computer, password protected, but I knew her passwords. She had never bothered to change them. Inside were emails, hundreds of them, between Clarissa and Marianne, going back 3 years. I started reading. My hands shook as I scrolled through message after message. "He's such a charity case," Clarissa had written. "Mother, you were right. I should have left him years ago." Marianne's response made my blood run cold. "He was always a project, dear. Failed projects get abandoned." I went down to the basement that same night, the only place in the house that still felt like mine. My workshop, my sanctuary. Dust covered everything. I had not been down here in months, maybe years. Clarissa hated the basement, called it my dungeon, said it smelled like sawdust and failure. She never came down. I ran my fingers over old blueprints pinned to the cork walls. Inventions I had dreamed of building when I still believed my hands could create something valuable. A mechanical puzzle box that opened without keys. A self-locking cabinet that responded to touch. A door that opened without visible hinges. Ideas I had sketched late at night when creativity still felt possible. In the corner sat a locked metal cabinet I had not opened in 5 years. I found the key on my workbench under a layer of dust. Rusty. Stiff. The lock fought me for a moment, then clicked open with a sound like a whisper. Inside sat something wrapped in old canvas, something half-built, something I had started before Clarissa convinced me to quit wasting time on stupid fantasies. I unwrapped it carefully. A mechanical locking mechanism. Complex, beautiful, intricate, based on old tumbler systems but completely modernized, designed to respond to a specific sequence of touches, pressure points, like a combination lock made of solid steel with no visible keyhole. I lifted it gently, turned it in my hands, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. The next morning, I quit my part-time job at the hardware store. The manager looked surprised, concerned. "You sure, Eli? You've been here 12 years. We need you." I nodded. "I'm sure. I need to focus on something else now, something important." He shook my hand, wished me luck. I cashed out my small retirement account, took my savings from the bank. It was not much, maybe $15,000 total, but it was mine. Earned, saved, untouched by Clarissa's expensive tastes. I drove out to the country, past the nice neighborhoods, past the manicured suburbs, into the rural areas where land was cheap and people minded their own business. Asked few questions. I found a beat-up workshop for rent, $50 a week. The owner was an old farmer named Hank who barely glanced at me. "You a criminal?" he asked while chewing tobacco. "No, sir." "You gonna cook drugs in there?" "No, sir, just building things, woodwork, metalwork, honest craftsmanship." He shrugged, spit into a coffee can. "Rent's due Fridays, no exceptions." I moved my tools in that same afternoon. Every saw, every drill, every measuring tape and level and square, everything I had collected over 30 years of working with my hands. The workshop smelled like motor oil and old wood. The concrete floor was cracked. The lighting was terrible. The heating barely worked. But it was mine, and that made it perfect. Clarissa called me 3 weeks later. Her voice was businesslike, cold. "We need to meet with my lawyer to finalize some things before the divorce proceedings begin." I agreed without argument. We met at a fancy office downtown. Leather chairs, mahogany desk, original artwork on the walls. A lawyer named Preston with perfect teeth and a $1,000 suit. "We're updating Clarissa's will and trust documents," Preston explained smoothly. "Per her request, you're being removed as beneficiary from all assets. The house, the investment accounts, the retirement funds, everything reverts to her family line." He slid papers across the polished desk. "We just need your signature acknowledging you understand these changes." I signed without reading. Did not argue. Did not fight. Did not show any emotion whatsoever. Preston looked almost disappointed, like he had prepared for a battle that never materialized. Clarissa smirked, looking triumphant, victorious, like she had won something valuable. "Also," Preston continued, gathering papers, "there's the matter of the lake house property. Mary Ann is moving forward with the sale. She needs the liquidity for some investments." My head snapped up. "The lake house? I thought Clarissa swore she'd never sell that place." Clarissa waved her hand dismissively. "Plans change. Mother needs the capital. The market is good right now. We're accepting offers next month." Preston looked uncomfortable suddenly. Shifted in his seat. "Actually, there's a small complication with the deed. Nothing major, just some old paperwork that needs clearing up." I drove to the county records office the very next day, asked to see the property deed for the lake house estate. The clerk was a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and reading glasses on a chain. She pulled up the digital file, printed it out on official paper. I spread the pages across the wooden table, started reading carefully. The property had been purchased by Mary Ann's family in 1978, bought from a man named Elias Thornton. My breath caught in my throat. Elias Thornton, my grandfather. I had been named after him. He died when I was 10 years old. I barely remembered him, but I remembered he had owned land somewhere, out by the lake. I kept reading through the dense legal language. There, buried in paragraph 7. A reversion clause, standard in many old property deeds from that era. If certain specific conditions were not met, ownership could legally revert to the original family line. I read the conditions 3 times, 4 times, making sure I understood correctly. The property had to be used for residential purposes only, not commercial, not sold for development, and the original family line had to be notified of any sale attempt. My grandfather's family, my family, The clause had never been voided, never updated, never addressed, just forgotten. Buried in paperwork for 47 years. I asked the clerk for copies of everything. Every page, every amendment, every transfer record. She printed it all. I walked out of that office with a folder thick with possibility. I found a real estate attorney in town through a referral. Quiet practice. Small office above a bakery. Her name was Vivienne. She was maybe 60 years old. Sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. No-nonsense demeanor. Professional. I laid out all the documents on her desk, explained the entire situation, my grandfather, the sale, the forgotten clause. Vivienne read everything carefully, took detailed notes in neat handwriting, asked specific questions. After an hour, she leaned back in her leather chair, folded her hands. This is remarkable. This reversion clause is still valid, legally binding, enforceable. If they sell the property without properly notifying you as the heir to the original owner, you can file a formal claim. I felt my heart racing, pounding in my chest. A claim for what exactly? Vivienne smiled, a small knowing smile. Full ownership. The land reverts back to your family line. To you, completely. She tapped the documents with her pen. But there's a strict deadline. You have to file before the sale is finalized. And there's a statute of limitations. You need to file within 6 months of learning about the potential sale. I checked today's date on my phone. So I have 5 months? Vivienne nodded seriously. 5 months. But I'd recommend moving faster. Once Marianne realizes what you're doing, she'll fight. Hard. She has money, resources, expensive lawyers. This won't be easy. I thought about the humiliation, the emails, the 20 years of being called beneath them. I don't need easy, I said firmly. I need justice. I showed up at Marianne's mansion 2 weeks later. Unannounced, unexpected. The housekeeper looked surprised but let me in anyway. Clarissa was there having Sunday brunch with her mother on the terrace. Expensive pastries, fresh fruit, champagne in crystal flutes. I walked out slowly, stood there quietly, looking defeated, broken. Exactly what they expected to see. Ely? Clarissa looked annoyed, inconvenienced. What are you doing here? I wrung my hands nervously, played the part perfectly. I just wanted to apologize for everything, for not being enough, for holding you back all these years, for being the mistake your mother said I was. Marianne watched me like a cat watching a wounded bird, amused, superior. I'm moving out this week, starting over somewhere. I know I don't deserve it, but I was wondering if I could ask one small favor. Clarissa sighed heavily, dramatically. What do you want, Eli? I looked down at my worn shoes, voice quiet, humble. Could I visit the lake house one last time, just for closure? We spent our honeymoon there 20 years ago. I just want to say goodbye to that place properly. One last time. Marianne and Clarissa exchanged glances, a look of shared amusement. Fine, Marianne said dismissively, waving her hand like granting a favor to a beggar. This weekend. Saturday only. Be gone by evening. Don't make a scene. I nodded gratefully, thanked them both. Walked away with my shoulders slumped, playing the defeated man perfectly, the broken handyman, the charity case who finally knew his place in their world. Saturday arrived, cold and gray. Heavy clouds hung low over the trees. I drove to the lake house alone. The property was breathtaking. 5 acres of pristine land, tall pine trees, a small private beach with smooth stones. The old house itself was falling apart, rotting. Nobody had lived there in years, but the land was absolutely perfect. I walked every single inch of those 5 acres, measured distances with my feet, took photos with my phone from every angle, made detailed notes in a small notebook, found the highest point with the best view of the lake, right there, that exact spot. This was where I would build. Not a house, something else entirely, something unique, something they would never understand. I sat on a fallen log covered in moss, pulled out my sketch pad, and I started drawing. Not a traditional structure. Something different. A sanctuary with one powerful feature. Only I would know how to enter it. No visible door, no obvious entrance. The mechanism would be hidden, completely mechanical. Based on the locking system I had been building in my basement 5 years ago, the building would look like solid walls from the outside. Seamless. Perfect. Beautiful. But with the right sequence of touches in exactly the right places, a section would slide open silently. Only I would know the pattern, the sequence, the secret. Someone could stand inches from the door and never find it. could pound on the walls for hours and never know they were touching the entrance itself. Construction began in early May. I hired a small crew of local workers. 3 men who asked few questions and worked hard for fair pay. We poured the foundation first, then framed the south walls with precision. I worked alongside them every single day. 16-hour days, my hands blistered, my back ached constantly, but I kept going, kept building. The structure took shape slowly over weeks. Modern design, clean lines, large windows on 3 sides facing the beautiful lake. But one wall, the north wall, that wall was special, different. That wall had no windows, no visible breaks, no seams, just smooth cedar planks, beautiful wood, seamless, perfect. Inside that wall, I installed the mechanism. Working late at night after the crew left, completely alone. I mounted the gears carefully, the springs, the pressure sensors, all hidden between the inner and outer walls, all connected to 3 specific points on the exterior surface. Locals started talking, gossiping. "What's that old man building out there?" they asked at the diner, at the gas station, at church. "Some kind of fort?" I said nothing to anyone, just kept working, focused, determined. One afternoon in late May, Clarissa drove by slowly, slowed her expensive car, looked at the construction site through her sunglasses. I saw her through the trees, watching, judging. She laughed, actually laughed out loud, like my project was a pathetic joke, like I was a pathetic joke. She called me that night just to mock me further. The mechanism was finished in July. I tested it 50 times alone, at night, under the stars. The sequence was complex, precise, 3 pressure points. Each had to be pressed in exact order, with exact pressure. Too light, nothing happened. Too hard, nothing happened. Just right, the wall slid open smoothly, silently, perfectly. From outside, you could never tell. The pressure points looked like natural knots in the cedar wood, like imperfections, like random variations in the grain, but they were precisely placed, precisely calibrated, precisely engineered. Touch them correctly, the door appeared like magic. Touch them wrong, just a solid wall. A delivery driver brought supplies one hot afternoon, stood staring at the building. Confused, fascinated. I've been doing construction work for 20 years, never seen anything like this structure. "Where's the front door?" I smiled slightly. "It's there, you just have to know where to look." He walked around the entire building twice, searching, confused, frustrated. "I give up. Where is it?" I touched the 3 points in sequence. The wall slid open silently. His jaw dropped open. Eyes wide. "That's pure genius. Absolute genius. You should patent that mechanism." I shrugged. "It's not about money. It's about privacy, about control." He helped me unload the supplies. As he left, he mentioned casually he used to work for Marianne years ago. "She's a terrible person, treated us workers like dirt. Whatever you're building here, I hope it drives her absolutely crazy." In August, I hosted a gathering, a farewell party of sorts, invited family members, neighbors, local craftsmen, people from town, even sent a formal invitation to Marianne and Clarissa. "Come celebrate my new beginning," the card read simply. To my surprise, they actually came, arrived together. Marianne in her Mercedes, Clarissa beside her, both dressed like they were attending a funeral, black dresses, dark sunglasses. The gathering was simple, folding tables, barbecue, cold drinks in metal tubs filled with ice. People wandered around admiring the building from outside. "Beautiful craftsmanship," someone said. "Where's the entrance?" another asked. I just smiled mysteriously, said nothing specific. As the sun began to set over the lake, I stood on a wooden crate, raised my glass of lemonade. Everyone quieted down, turned to listen. "I want to thank you all for coming today. For 20 years, I was told I didn't belong, that I wasn't good enough, that my work didn't matter." I looked directly at Marianne, held her gaze. "But I learned something important. Sometimes the people who reject you are actually doing you a favor." I raised my glass higher. "So here's to moving on, to building something new, and to taking back what was always mine." People cheered, clinked glasses, smiled. Marianne and Clarissa looked confused, uncomfortable, worried. They left early, whispering to each other urgently, glancing back at the building repeatedly. After everyone left, I stood alone in the twilight, looking at what I had built, at what they could never have, at what they could never enter. 3 days later, Marianne showed up unannounced. Early morning. I watched from the tree line as her Mercedes pulled up the gravel driveway. She got out, walked around the building slowly, studying it carefully, looking for a way in. She tried the windows first, all locked, tried to find a door, found nothing. She walked around again, slower this time, more deliberately, running her hands along the walls, pressing randomly, searching. Nothing happened. She grew frustrated, angry, started knocking, then pounding. Hard. "Eli, I know you're in there. Open this door right now." But I was not inside. I was watching from 50 feet away, hidden behind trees, observing. She circled the building 3 times, getting angrier each time, more desperate, more confused. Finally, she pulled out her phone, called someone. "There's no door. I'm not joking. The building has no door anywhere. It's completely impossible." She listened. "I don't care what the contractor told you. There's no entrance. It's like a sealed box, a tomb." She stayed for an hour, examining every inch, every corner, every wall, every window, found absolutely nothing. Eventually she gave up, drove away furious, tires spitting gravel. I waited until she was completely gone. Then I approached the north wall, touched the 3 points in sequence. The door slid open smoothly. I stepped inside, touched the interior release. The door closed seamlessly behind me, perfect, silent, invisible. I sat in my chair by the window, looking out at the peaceful lake, and I laughed quietly. A week later, a reporter from the local historical society contacted me by email. They had heard about my building from someone at the gathering. "We'd love to feature it in our monthly newsletter. Unique architecture, traditional craftsmanship, would you be willing to give us a tour?" I agreed immediately. The reporter was a young woman named Kylie. Sharp, curious, professional, carried a nice camera. I showed her around the property, explained the hidden door mechanism, demonstrated it for her. Her eyes went wide, amazed. "This is incredible, absolutely incredible. Can I take photos? Video?" I nodded. "Just don't reveal the exact sequence. Keep some mystery alive." She published the article 2 weeks later. The Invisible Door House. It included beautiful photos, detailed descriptions, information about the craftsmanship, the hidden entrance, the clever engineering. The article went semi-viral locally, shared on community Facebook pages, discussed at coffee shops. People talked about it everywhere. More importantly, the article included the property information, the complete history, and a photo of a small brass plaque I had installed, built by Elias Thornton II on land originally owned by Elias Thornton I. Reclaimed 2024. Marianne's family name was nowhere, completely erased, removed from the land's entire story. I heard through mutual friends that Marianne saw the article, that she was absolutely furious, that she called the Historical Society demanding a retraction. They refused politely. Everything in the article was factual, legal, true. The land belonged to me now, legally, officially. Her name had no place on it anymore. The official land claim went through in September. Vivienne called me with the news. "It's done. The land is legally yours. The reversion clause held up perfectly in court. Marianne's family has been formally notified. They have 30 days to contest if they have grounds." I felt something release in my chest, a weight lifting. Will they contest? They'll try, but they don't have any grounds. The clause was clear. They violated the terms by attempting to sell without notifying you. You filed in time. You're the legal heir. It's absolutely airtight. 2 weeks later, Clarissa received a letter. Not from me, from her bank. Her trust was being reevaluated. The lake house property was no longer part of her future inheritance. It had been removed, transferred, gone. She called me screaming, hysterical. "What did you do?" "The bank says the lake house isn't ours anymore. They're freezing the trust until everything is sorted out." I stayed calm, quiet, controlled. "The land never belonged to you, Clarissa. It belonged to my grandfather. Your family bought it with conditions they never properly honored. I just enforced those conditions. You can't do this. Mother will destroy you." I smiled, even though she could not see me. "Your mother humiliated me in front of your entire family, told me I didn't belong, so I built something she'll never belong in. I'd say we're perfectly even now." I hung up, blocked her number, and went back to my sanctuary. The place they could never enter. The place they could never control. The place that was finally, completely mine. I did not attack Marianne directly. That was not my style, not my nature. But I knew things. Years of being invisible at family gatherings meant I heard things, saw things, noticed details others missed. Like how Marianne moved money through questionable trusts, how she claimed tax deductions that seemed suspicious, how she funneled family funds through complicated structures to avoid taxes. I made a quiet phone call, anonymous tip line, IRS. I have information about potential tax fraud. I explained what I knew calmly, provided specific dates, names, general information. Nothing I could not have learned from being family for 20 years. Nothing provable as coming from me. Just a concerned citizen reporting suspicious activity. The IRS does not move fast, but they move thoroughly, methodically. Within 6 weeks, Marianne received an official letter. Her accounts were being audited, flagged for detailed review. She would need to provide extensive documentation. Lots of documentation. Years of records, receipts, explanations for every transaction. I heard about it through the community grapevine. Marianne's usual lunch group. The church ladies. The charity board. They whispered, gossiped. Did you hear? Marianne's being investigated by the IRS. Something about tax fraud. The whispers spread like wildfire. People started distancing themselves. Quietly. Politely. But definitively. Marianne tried to control the narrative. Through a charity event. Bigger than usual. More expensive. Desperate. But attendance was way down. People made polite excuses. Prior commitments. Scheduling conflicts. She was losing her social standing. Her influence. Her carefully constructed power. Not all at once. Just slowly. Like water eroding stone. Inevitable. Unstoppable. Permanent. By October, the cracks were completely public, visible to everyone. Marianne was quietly removed from the board of her main charity organization. Restructuring, they called it officially. Everyone knew what it really meant. Her friends stopped calling, stopped inviting her to events, stopped returning her messages. Clarissa's social circle went silent too, guilty by association. I heard Clarissa tried desperately to distance herself from her mother. Too late. Far too late. The damage was already done, permanent. Their family name was tainted. Whispered about. Avoided. One afternoon, Marianne showed up at my rented workshop. Uninvited, unwelcome, unwanted. She pushed through the door without knocking. Face red, furious, shaking with rage. You did this, she screamed at me. You ruined everything. You tipped off the IRS. You stole our land. You turned everyone against us. I stayed seated at my workbench, calm, quiet. I looked up slowly. I didn't steal anything, Marianne. I reclaimed what my family originally owned. As for the IRS, I simply provided factual information. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. You'll regret this, she hissed. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. I stood up slowly, deliberately. They already know. I'm the man you publicly humiliated, the man you called beneath you, the man who wasn't good enough for your daughter. But I'm also the man who built something you can't touch, can't enter, can't control. She slapped me hard across the face. I did not flinch, just stared at her calmly. She left shaking. Sometimes, I said quietly to her back as she walked away, what you build for others ends up keeping them out. She spun around. What did you say? I remained calm, steady, in control. You built a cage out of pride, out of believing you were better than everyone else. That cage is closing around you now. But me, I built a door you'll never find. Built freedom you can't touch. Built peace you never knew existed. Marianne's hands clenched into fists. You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. I smiled, a genuine smile. Maybe, but I'm nothing that you can hurt anymore. She left, slamming the door, tires screeching. I went back to my work. Peaceful, content. The IRS investigation intensified through November. They seized several of Marianne's assets, bank accounts, investment portfolios, properties held in questionable trusts. Pending investigation, the notices read. Clarissa panicked, called expensive lawyers, accountants, everyone she could think of. But the damage was spreading, metastasizing. Their accounts were audited, every transaction questioned, everything scrutinized under microscopes. They tried to sell assets to cover mounting legal fees. But who would buy during an active investigation? Who would risk association? Everything was frozen, locked, untouchable. Marianne tried to sell the mansion, her pride, her statement of wealth and power, but buyers were scarce. The scandal scared them away. Then they remembered the lake house, one last asset. But when they pulled the official title, it read clearly, property not for sale, private ownership, Elias Thornton Sicken. My name, not theirs, never theirs again. They tried to fight it legally, filed motions, hired expensive lawyers, spent money they no longer had. But Vivienne had prepared for this. Every document was perfect, every clause was crystal clear, every deadline properly met, every form correctly filed. The court ruled in my favor. Final decision. The land was mine, legally, permanently, irrevocably. Marianne and Clarissa had no claim, no standing, no recourse, no appeal. I heard Marianne screamed in the courtroom. Actually screamed. Had to be escorted out by court security. The family fortune was crumbling, the social empire was falling, the carefully constructed world was collapsing. And I was at peace. I visited the sanctuary every single day, watched the lake, read books by the fireplace, built small projects with my hands, lived quietly, simply, freely. Free from their world, free from their judgment, free from their cruelty. Finally completely free. Winter came early that year. Snow covered the ground by Thanksgiving. I heard through acquaintances that Marianne was selling jewelry, family heirlooms, pieces she swore would never leave the family. But desperation makes people do unexpected things, makes them compromise values they claimed were absolute. Clarissa tried reaching out, left voicemails on my phone. Eli, please, we need to talk. I made mistakes, Mother made mistakes, can we just talk? I deleted every single message, blocked her new numbers when she tried different phones. I had absolutely nothing to say to her, nothing to give, nothing to offer. Eli vanished from their lives completely. No calls, no visits, no contact whatsoever. He was at peace, but the mystery ate away at them. The not knowing, the lack of closure. One December afternoon, Clarissa drove to the lake property. She walked toward the building crying, actually crying, real tears. She circled the building, looking for an entrance she knew existed but could not find. Found nothing. Started knocking desperately. Eli, please, I know you're in there. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I sat still inside, silent, watching her through the window. She pounded harder, more desperately. Please, just talk to me. Mother's sick. We've lost everything. I need help. Still I sat, unmoved. She stood there for an hour, in the snow, crying, begging, pleading. Eventually she gave up, walked back to her car, defeated, broken, alone. Before she drove away, she looked back at the building one final time, at the walls that would not open for her, at the sanctuary built by the man she had discarded like trash. I watched her leave through the window, felt nothing, not satisfaction, not pity, just emptiness where she used to exist. She came back 2 days later. This time she brought photos, old photos, held them up to the window, pictures of us when we were young, our wedding day, our daughter as a baby. Remember? She shouted desperately. Remember when we were happy, when we loved each other? I stood up from my chair, walked to the hidden door, touched the 3 pressure points in the correct sequence. The wall slid open smoothly, silently. She gasped audibly, ran toward me, hope flooding her face. I stepped outside into the cold air, stood in the doorway, blocking her path completely. She stopped. Eli, please, can we start over? Can we fix this? I looked at her, really looked at her. She had aged, lost weight. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced by normal things. She looked tired, desperate, broken, human. You don't belong with me, I said quietly but firmly. Her face crumbled. What? You don't belong with me, I repeated, using her mother's exact words from that dinner. You made that perfectly clear. In front of everyone, you chose their side, their values, their cruelty. You don't get to come back now because it's convenient, because you're desperate. But I love you, she cried out. I shook my head. You love security. You love comfort. You never loved me. You loved what I could provide while you figured out how to leave. I stepped back inside, touched the interior release button. The wall began to slide closed. Eli, please. Her hand reached out. Too late. The wall sealed shut, silent, perfect, complete, final. I walked to my chair, sat down, looked out at the lake, at the peace, at the freedom. She pounded on the wall for another hour, then gave up, left, never came back. Winter deepened, snow piled high, the lake froze solid. Marianne's health declined rapidly. Stress, age, the investigation, everything caught up with her all at once. She was hospitalized in January, heart problems, complications. Clarissa tried to visit me one last time. Mother's dying, she wants to apologize. I said nothing, did nothing, sent nothing. Their problems were not my concern anymore. Marianne passed away in late February. The funeral was small, quiet, sparsely attended. Most of her so-called friends did not show up. I did not go either. Felt no obligation, no connection, no need for closure. She had cut those ties herself when she decided I was not worth basic respect or human dignity. Clarissa inherited what little was left, which was not much. The investigation had claimed most of the liquid assets. The mansion sold for half its previous value. Debts consumed the rest. She moved into a small apartment, got a regular job, normal hours, regular pay, regular life. I heard she tried rebuilding her social connections, tried reconnecting with old friends, but the damage was permanent, irreversible. Trust broken, reputation destroyed. She was alone, starting over at 53, just like she had forced me to start over. They tried one final time to find legal loopholes to reclaim the land. Hired lawyers, filed motions, searched for technicalities. There were none. The law was clear. The decision was final. The land was mine, forever. Poetic justice, quiet, complete, perfect. Spring came slowly. The ice melted. Birds returned. Life continued. I spent my days at the sanctuary, working on small projects, carving wood, reading, watching sunsets. I had everything I needed: solitude, peace, purpose. One morning I stood at the north wall inside the sanctuary and I carved a message into the hidden door, where only I would ever see it. Built by hands you mocked, lived in peace you never knew. Simple, true, final. That afternoon I received a letter from a museum in the state capital. They had seen Kylie's article about the invisible doorhouse. We would like to feature your architectural innovation in our spring exhibition. Your unique approach to privacy and craftsmanship represents a lost art. They offered to pay, to create a display, to interview me. I agreed. Not for money, for legacy. To show that the charity case had created something worthy of preservation. Something museums wanted to study, something that would outlast the family that rejected me. The exhibition opened in April, small but prestigious. My design drawings were displayed, photos of the sanctuary, explanations of the hidden mechanism. People came, architects, historians, students. They asked questions, took notes, treated my work with respect, with admiration. Validation I never received from Marianne or Clarissa. I stood in that museum, looking at my life's work on display behind glass, and I smiled. They had tried to erase me. Instead, I had erased them, from the land, from the story, from my life. I sit at the lake now, watching the sunset paint the water gold and orange and purple. A young builder named Tucker works beside me, 23 years old, studying architecture, learning, growing. He asked to apprentice under me after seeing the museum exhibition. I agreed. Why did you really build this place? He asked yesterday. I thought carefully. They built a cage out of pride, out of believing they were better than everyone else. That cage trapped them eventually, destroyed them. But me, I built a door they'll never find, built freedom they can't touch, built peace they never knew existed. Tucker nods, understanding. Will you ever forgive them? I watch a heron land gracefully on the shore. Forgiveness isn't about them, it's about me choosing not to carry their weight anymore. I release them, not for their sake, for mine. The sun dips lower. The sky turns deeper purple. I stand slowly, walk to the north wall. Tucker watches closely as I touch the 3 pressure points. The exact sequence, the secret. The wall slides open. Silent, perfect. We step inside together. I show him the mechanism, the gears, the springs, the craftsmanship. Someday, I say quietly, this knowledge will be yours. He looks at me with respect. Thank you for trusting me. I touch the interior release. The door slides closed, sealing us safely inside our sanctuary, away from a world that once rejected me, in a place I built with my own hands, where I finally, completely, permanently belong.